So I saw this in a Facebook group that I'm in, one mocking conservative idiocy online, and I thought it would be fun to just kind of do a quick go through. It's just an infographic, almost looks like some AI generated crap, but it's actually too consistent to not be something it looks like that a human actually put time and effort into. Two wings of the same bird. Communism, fascism, socialism. Oh, even though any amount of cursory looking into the concepts of fascism versus socialism, with communism being the end goal of socialism, socialism being the means to an end of a communist society. I'm not going to get into details there, but it suffices to say that the two are actually polar fucking opposites. But of course, communism got an extremely bad rap thanks to the way the Soviet Union kind of got stuck perpetually at war with itself for its entire existence. And, the way Stalin did things and the number of effective puppet states he helped create that would follow Stalinist principles, which are actually antithetical to communism, but, when you've got a nation that's effectively permanently paranoid from the get go, and you're an authoritarian fuckwit, why not make it worse? Thanks, Joseph Stalin. You really did a good thing for the world. Anyway, here's the chart. This garbage matrix of the Nazis, the actual Italian fascists, which are the origin of the party, of the concept in the modern world. Their political party was the fascist party, and other groups modeled themselves after it, like the Nazis. Here we have a hammer and sickle, ostensibly representing the Soviet Union, but a placeholder for communism, but I'm going to treat it like the Soviet Union for a specific reason which has already been alluded to. Then we have, the Democratic Party. Oh! And then that stupid ass MAGA hat representing MAGA. Because that's it's not even Republicans, it's strictly MAGA. You love it. So, collectivist, state-controlled economy. Okay, the Nazis weren't collectivists, the fascists weren't collectivists, the Soviet Union ostensibly was collectivist, but in practice, really no, because again, they kind of got stuck in the adolescent teen phase of their revolution and never moved past it. Once again, thanks, Stalin. And the Democrats, no. But MAGA, no as well, so I mean, they're not lying here, but followed up with state-controlled economy, which is separate from collectivism. Semi so with the Nazis, especially as you get into the war buildup, and then as the war was going on, Totalenkrieg, yeah, everything became about the war, and it was, an edict as such. But that is kind of the thing of conflict, is that invariably you're going to push more resources into the war, especially when you have a war of aggression that you're trying to push as quickly as you can. Now, the entire Blitzkrieg tactic thing was sort of a myth. It's been, dare I say, romanticized through history, but the nature of German mechanized infantry and the end result of their extremely efficient tactics and capabilities early on in the war, while resources were plentiful, helped to create that myth, and naturally comes as a side effect of a country being aligned towards this goal. Fascist Italy, I'm not entirely sure on the nature of their economy. It's one of those subjects that I haven't looked too into, and I'm surprised I haven't, because Mussolini and the Fascist Party themselves are relatively interesting, but it just never hit me as hard. But then again, they were sort of playing second fiddle to Nazi Germany. Soviet Union, state-controlled economy? Yep. Welcome to Stalin's 5-year plans. Funny, everything about the Soviet Union falls back 9 times out of 10 to Joseph Stalin. Kind of amazing. Um, but that's just how those things kind of worked at that stage in the development. It was part of the socialist progress towards a proper communist society. And when you have a nation that's that large, it's kind of the best you can do and kind of got mismanaged. But what's funny is, ignoring strictly speaking on the Soviet Union, other nations like North Korea in the 60s and 70s, through controlled economy and collectivist principles, actually were booming quite well. As opposed to like South Korea, which was in a bit of a slump during the 60s and 70s. Then things changed and stagnated, oddly coinciding with the stagnation period of the Soviet Union. To which I have to come back to the Soviet Union and say, yeah, during those Stalin years, they actually did, and the Brezhnev era, they made a lot of technological progress, even via a controlled economy and the like. It's almost as if you pour resources into the right things, you get returns. But the Democrats, no, not collectivists. No, no state controlled economy. But MAGA, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they don't eventually, if they were to remain in such authoritarian power as any authoritarian regime would start, commanding the economy to go certain ways to benefit themselves. Centralized control in the capital, well, that is kind of where you centralize control of a nation. But let's step back and look at it in the parts. You're going to have a capital. That's how things work. So I don't know why you have to put that in. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that exactly, but yeah, the Nazi Party was extremely authoritarian, as were the Fascist Party, and was the vast majority of the Soviet Union's existence, save for those very early years where even then Lenin and them tried to maintain and consolidate power, primarily because they had a country, a newborn country, still going through a first phase of revolution with the Russian Civil War. Then later on, trying to unite everybody proper and squash out more capable resistance back when anti-Bolshevik and anti-Soviet feelings inside the country. We're still talking only an 8 year period after the fall of the Tsar, where they would be, there would still be loyalist elements springing up and wanting to stop the revolution, stop the movement towards what the Soviet Union was supposed to become. And then again, after Lenin died, our old boy Stalin decided to take advantage of all that shit. The Democrats, no, they seem to want to have the country operate as it has been for nearly 250 years. This modified process that we have. It's been tweaked slightly, but is generally the same as it was structured originally, is my understanding. Expanded and the like, sure. But MAGA, whew, y'all want to act like Donald Trump is just the God Emperor himself. So I don't know where you get off saying no to a situation where it would be yes because they were authoritarian, yes because they were authoritarian, yes because they were authoritarian, no, and yes because you're authoritarian, which goes right into rule by elite experts, quote unquote, and bureaucrats. Yes, no, it was whoever buddied up to Hitler generally got power, and especially an added bonus if you were a World War One veteran. You got a little extra boost into things. You were probably chosen as a bit of a higher up. Goading anyone? Let's see. The Fascist Party. Again, same thing. It's authoritarian. It's going to be cronyism. Soviet Union. Yep. Again, cases of cronyism. Thanks, Stalin. Remember the route that the Soviet Union went through all of its life, except for those very early years, is not what Lenin wanted. And it was a means to an end in an attempt of getting proper communism stated in the Soviet Union, is why, towards the tail end of Lenin's life, there was a level of authoritarianism there in order to quash dissent in the previously mentioned tense situation where there were actual credible threats. And then in the Stalin era and later, it became a paranoia state. Because that's how things go. Democrats, no. See, your quoting of experts here is the big problem. I mean, the Democrats, yeah, it is still a case of elite rule. I shouldn't say no just flatly, because the Democrats are just less right than the Republicans, especially now. But well, they're more right than the average Republican is now. But the point is that these quote unquote experts that you disregard on the MAGA side actually do know what they're talking about. RFK isn't an expert on a goddamn thing. Donald Trump isn't an expert on a goddamn thing. No one running anything in this fucking country right now is an expert on anything. But of course, when you put quote experts, you mean real experts. So that's not how any of that works. So you want absolute idiots calling the shots who, yes, are still the elite. So, yeah, in this case, you've got a firm yes for everything, but with different subtleties involved that can't just be put to a binary. But if anything could be said to be the least yes, it would be the Democrats, if only by virtue of all these other selections as they existed being horrible. State controlled media. Authoritarian hellscape for Nazis? Yep. Authoritarian hellscape for fascist Italy? Yes. Authoritarian hellscape for the Soviet Union as it became in practice? Yes. Democratic Party of the United States? No. It is not state controlled media in any way, shape, or form, nor are they promoting such. For MAGA? Fuck yeah. You wish to, and this ties into the next one, censor elements of free speech, actively use the government against those who speak their mind, classifying people who would be arbitrarily put into the Antifa category as if it is an actual organization, which it's not, as terrorists. Um, Stuff from things from like that, all the way down to the bullshit with Jimmy Kimmel saying some shit about Charlie Kirk and Trump using the FCC to press ABC slash Disney slash whatever conglomerate owns that stuff to what became a temporary firing of him, or face actual backlash from a government agency. That is most definitely state controlled media, and that is our attempt at state controlling of media, and let's not mention good old Fox News, which goes back to the censorship of free speech. Yep, because the Nazis didn't exactly want people talking about all the crimes the Nazis were doing. Yep, on the fascists because you weren't talking about Mussolini because, they didn't want it. Soviet Union? Yeah, sure, same thing. Democrats? Funny, you fuckers are still talking shit about Obama and motherfucking Bill Clinton, and nothing seems to be happening to you, yet simultaneously you want to claim the Democratic Party is censoring free speech. Yeah, fucking right. But as mentioned with the Jimmy Kimmel incident prior, and any number of other things that can be easily found, yeah, MAGA wants to censor free speech. Disarm the population. Yeah, generally, when you're authoritarian hellscape, you want to disarm people. That's kind of a thing that does go on. So, sure, Nazis, the fascists, the Soviet Union as it existed, yeah, totally. Democrats, the rhetoric goes that way because they're still not going to jump on board with the we have to work on mental health thing because that would go against the Democratic Party's actual interests where they're vested in with insurance companies and all that jazz. So, the typical cronyism that does exist in the lesser of the two evils running this country is still there. But so far, they haven't made any real active focus on that, and there's no intent to explicitly disarm the population like would be made in, um, fuck, was it New Zealand it happened in? Was it Australia? Somewhere where it's like it was one mass shooting, and then boom, the firearms were gone outside of special cases, and that's it. But I can't remember which one. But MAGA, no, you don't want to disarm the population, but that's because you're currently pushing for Civil War II. Uh, the re-redneckening. And what I feel would happen is if you got your precious Civil War II and things didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, you would then attempt to confiscate firearms, or after the fact would attempt to confiscate stuff. Or even now, I have heard rumor of and certainly seen right wingers support the confiscation of firearms from left leaning individuals such as myself. Which is funny because for a great many years I constantly asked, what would you do if large numbers of left wing people were armed? And people would say they'd support it, but then when it actually happens, and there's a noticeable uptick after the first Trump presidency of quote unquote liberal people becoming armed where they weren't otherwise, well, they didn't like that. You know, guns for me, not for thee if you're MAGA, am I right? Criminalization of political opponents. Yes, because fascist hellscape. Yes, because fascist hellscape. Yes, because fascist hellscape. Fascist authoritarian hellscape, I should say. No, otherwise, every Republican would effectively be in jail or otherwise criminalized in some fucking way. Once again, MAGA literally classifying people who remotely disagree with their policies or use their right to free speech to openly oppose the oppression being seen globally. Yeah, and yes, globally, not just domestic, but globally, as promoted by MAGA and the currently operating United States government, again, are being classified as terrorists and criminals and monsters and inhuman and such. Because, again, well, actually, I hadn't said this yet, so I'll say it now. Hey, dumbass Trump, you want to classify me as a terrorist? I've been called worse by better people. So, whatever. If that means opposing your bullshit, then go for it, buddy boy. We'll see how long that actually stands. Putting in internal enemies in camps? Ah, yes, the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, the internment camps of the fascist regime, the gulags and such of the Soviet Union. But then we got here the Japanese internment camps in World War II. Okay, first off, this is before the party policy switch happened. So if you are blaming Democrats at that point, they actually would have been the Republicans at that point. Um, so no bueno, and vice versa. If it was Democrat policies that did that, that same group would have been the conservative group and would now be the Republicans and stuff. But this is absolutely fucking rich. MAGA. Yeah, what happened to Alligator Alcatraz? What happened with all the ICE raids going on and people just being deported left, right, and center? Um, and all kinds of other shit we likely don't even know about yet, but is going on. I mean, come the fuck on. Don't say no when you literally had, again, Alligator Alcatraz as it was called, colloquially. Yeah, you're putting your enemies in camps and you're trying even harder to weaponize the justice system so you can again classify them as criminals, people like me, because that's all you've got. But, we're the bad guys on the left. Yes, I roll over Democrat, and yes, I know that's hardly the left, but, come the fuck on, dude. Whoever made this is a fucking idiot, but we're going to continue with the last one. Mass murder of unwanted humans. And we get, the millions in Nazi Germany, the millions in fascist Italy, the millions in the Soviet Union, and of course, fucking abortion. Hey, guess what? It's not murder. Get the fuck over it. Murder is properly defined. Abortion processes are not murder. Get the fuck over it. But no. Oh, MAGA. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. Are you not supporting Israel in their current genocide where they are eliminating unwanted people? Huh. Funny how that works, but you're not directly doing it, so you can claim plausible deniability. And yes, the Democrats are guilty of that too. America's policies with regards to Israel have been bullshit, and I hate that it's taken me as long as it has for me to realize the truth of what had actually been going on there. Even when I used to work with a guy who was from Palestine and told me stuff, now I feel bad for not listening to him more. I know he's okay, he's still here in the States, so we don't have to worry about that, but it makes me feel bad. You don't care if people who are beneath you starve to death. You don't care about the fact that financial support, food, quote unquote food stamps, supplemental nutrition benefits are just not available to people this month. You don't care at all. So, but that's not mass murder. That's just people not pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. You don't care that the companies rape people for money and then do not provide benefits. That healthcare costs what it does, and people die because they cannot afford healthcare and have to choose between living the last bit of time they have remotely comfortably for themselves or going into massive debt that their own fucking family is going to somehow be looped into paying because shit's fucked up like that. You don't care about that, MAGA. But, them there aborted babies that you also don't care about once they're actually born if the pregnancies weren't terminated. You don't provide any support on that end, but you have to do it. That's why we say you idiots are pro-birth, not pro-life. But there we go. Just, how do you beyond what I said here is again another ad hoc, just let's just record it and see what happens thing. How do you respond to this kind of propaganda, this kind of arbitrary bullshit? It's not worth the time to dig into in super detailed levels because all of these lies have already been covered in one way or another. But at the same rate, you can't just ignore these things when you see them. So, what do you do? I guess just record a video for however long this has been recording. Say what you've got to say. Stumble across your words a few times. Have a bit of a laugh. Then remember that people take this shit seriously. Oh, and by the way, MAGA. Socialism is bad for y'all, except when it comes to the banks and to the car companies and to the elites. Then we'll socialize the hell out of everything and give them benefits. If the car companies were failing, let them fucking fail. If the banks were failing, let them fucking fail. That's capitalism, baby. Y'all fucking love it. But suddenly, when that was happening back in '08 or so, remind you, as we had Obama just coming into office, '08, '09 range, bailouts aplenty. You'll take that kind of socialism. You'll also take the socialism of public roadways, public police and fire departments, and the like. But it's technically private business, but it's still government owned. The postal service, though, you'll accept that as being a thing that's just a given. Again, socialist constructs, but you don't want it anywhere else. I love that one. Just roads, police, and fire department. Enough said. Every American takes advantage of socialism every single day. And most of them don't even realize that's what it is, and don't realize that at scale it completely fucking works when things are handled correctly. As opposed to, a paranoia state like our old friend the Soviet Union was. So that's that. I don't have anything else to add. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.